Thanks everyone for watching. PropTech has been around for quite some time now, and I suppose it's just become the terminology that's used for technical answers to a lot of property type questions. But because it's been around for quite some time now, there's sort of common elements and themes that are working their way through these industries or processes that I thought it might be worth sharing our thoughts, some thoughts on what's important at a legal and a commercial level. Having said that, probably as soon as I've mentioned the word legal, probably half you feeling like turning off because you think you're going to get a bill, but you're not. And secondly, a large part of the legal that I'm going to talk about during this presentation isn't that expensive, and the commercial is just things you should do along the way. So the PropTech space has become, I suppose, in some ways the winning the Melbourne Cup or the Taps Lotto event for a lot of people. So they have an idea, they start working on it, and some businesses just roll on themselves and make money, and they probably don't have an end game or an exit position, as we might call it. But in most cases, PropTech businesses do. What they're doing is they're hoping that one of the big players like REA, Domain, CoreLogic, someone like that, or a bank, sees what a great idea you've come up with and how far you've got with it, and they want to buy you. In some cases, the amounts that are paid by these massive organisations to them probably aren't huge, and to a degree it's probably for them just sort of money they found in the ashtray, if we still have ashtrays, I'm not sure. But they're normally life-changing for the vendors, the sellers involved in these businesses. So I'm just going to try and go through the main elements, commercial and legal, you just keep an eye on the way through. I'm not saying I'm going to get them all, because it moves around a little bit. There may be some things that are particularly to your business that would need more emphasis, but I don't want to have a disclaimer or now or a 14-page disclaimer at the end of this, trying to protect me and us if I miss something on the way through. So it's really just general advice, and I hope you find it useful. I'm going to try and keep this relatively short, which is not really in the DNA of lawyers, but to a large degree, nearly all the topics I'm going to mention on the way through would probably be enough. There's probably enough material in each one to have their own presentation, but I don't want to put everyone to sleep. Okay, the starting point seems to be with this is a good idea. So you're an estate agent or a tech person just from outside, and you can see some issue that's not really done well in real estate, listing, management, people management, inspections, whatever it is, authorities, whatever it is, and you come up with a good idea how to fix that problem with a technical solution, computer, software. Realistically, a good idea just isn't worth anything, because you don't really, well, you might get some minor traction with a good idea, but you won't get much. We get people coming to us and say, I've been working on this for, geez, I had one guy said he's working on for 8 years. And I sort of said, this was about a geography listing sort of process, but I said, look, if you've been working on it for 8 years, I just don't think it's going to work, because the chances are someone else has done it, or if you're going that slowly, maybe it's not such a great idea, or you're really not the person, don't have the skills or the money or the determination to see it through. So if you've got a good idea, then to you it's worth something. You might get some investors, on the way through, but quoting good ideas to big organisations, well, you won't get the chance, to be honest. They want to, and I'm going to come in detail to the commercialisation of your good idea and why that's so important, and not the good idea. So again, trying to sort of put it in the order that these things come up. You've had the good idea, been working on it, having a business plan, just thinking about how it works, who you know, what you need to go forward, and you're at the stage where you're starting to get some investors and shareholders into your business. I'd really strongly suggest that if you're the creator, the founder of these businesses, that you get a shareholders agreement done. Look, I'm a really big believer in them for just about all businesses, to be honest. And again, I've given presentations on shareholders agreements, but I won't, and they're important, how useful they are, but I won't do it now. I'll just hit a couple of the main elements of a shareholders agreement that you would have in the start of a PropTech business when it's not just you and you're getting investors. The two major things that I would put into a shareholders agreement at the start, and you've got to remember you may never get another one done. Often the one you start with, that's as far as you ever get. No one will sign another one later on. So there's no guarantee that you might be able to revisit it as you grow. So you want to try and get as many things right as you can, but I don't think you have to cover everything. But there's two things I would cover, and I'll swing back to one of these as to the importance of it. That's who makes the decision to sell. So shareholders agreement should say, it could be the founder, you could have the creator might have 100% power to make a decision as to when a business is to be sold, or it could be 75%, but you want that to be clear. And I'll come back to that when I'm talking about when someone starts really looking at your business, why that's so important. The second one, if you're on the other side of the project, like you're the investor, you want to make sure that if you put money in, often you'll hear these expressions after a while, the first round, the second round, whatever. If you put money in one of the rounds of raising money to get things commercially moving, that if you don't put money into subsequent fundraisings, you're not out of the picture altogether. You haven't lost your investment. What that's sort of normally called in our space is dilution. So that this is mathematics I can do. Let's say the initial amount of money raised for the project for the business is $1 million, and you put in 100,000. Well, you're 10%. So that if the $1 million, and again it's its own topic in itself, where the money's spent, but leaving that aside, that if the founder of the business, the one in the main driver, says we need another $1 million, and you don't have enough, you've had a very poor spring carnival at the races, or there's not enough listing, or school fees have all come in on the one day, you don't have that money, or you decide not to. You just decide you're not going to put in, say the next round's another $1 million, which would take it to $2 million. But if you don't put any money in, but others do, you're diluted to 5%. And rather than losing your whole of your investment. Often with these things though, if you don't keep up with the funding rounds, if you don't keep putting money in the appropriate percentage, on the second, if you're in the first, you don't put money in the second or third and think this is really going to work, you may not have the right to put it into the fourth round or something like that. So that's often how those agreements read, and those things should be taken up in a shareholders agreement. As I said, as the business grows in complexity, other issues may become important. You might want to do more complicated shareholders agreements later on, but that for commercial reasons might not be possible, might not happen. The next one is that if you've got look, maybe just swinging back to the good idea based on personal experience, I won't say bitter, good lesson learned, was that if you've got a good idea, then you do want to be careful who you mention it to. Because I actually had this experience where it came back to me as an echo. It was definitely my idea. I only told one other person, and a week or two later I'm starting to hear it back from others, and I thought, I'll name him for first name. I knew I never should have told Steve that, because he'd obviously told everyone else, which is not really necessarily the end of the world. But the problem is if someone hears your idea, they themselves may have the resources, the money, or the organisation that can really carry it through much faster than you ever could. You might sort of lose the financial advantage on the way through. So the next one, which is the sort of a smallish sort of topic, is if you've got a good catchy name for your business or logos, they're probably worth trademarking. It's not a complicated process. It'll give you some protection of your idea, and also if someone approaches you wanting to buy your business, it'll look like you've thought about it, look like you're organised, and definitely lawyers look at things like trademarks. The next part is really the most important part, and that's the commercialisation. So you've moved a bit beyond the good idea, and you've started working your way through whatever your clever idea is. So what you've got to then do, and this is like critically important, is you've got to starting the bleeding obvious. You've got to start getting clients, and you've got to start getting revenue into your business. What is unusual about the PropTech space is that you don't actually have to be making money for someone to want to come and buy your business. There's different words for it, but the main one we tend to hear is what I call, but somebody might say, what's the burn rate? Now what the burn rate is that you might be making money, but you lose still, I won't say making money, better to say you've got revenue, but you're not making any money. So you've got money coming in, and you might have a burn rate of 50 grand a month, which means in English that the business, you get 50 grand in from clients, but it's costing you $100,000 a month to run the business. And so there's a gap there of $50,000 per month, and that's what they call the burn rate. Now, it doesn't matter that you're losing money in this space, but you do have to show a strong commercial trajectory. You will get paid more for your PropTech business if you actually are making money, because there's different valuation models come in when you're making money compared to when you're still losing money on the way through. So, but you don't have to think, well, if I'm not making money, if I'm not making a profit, and it's not saleable because they are. So when one of these big players, Domain, REA, CoreLogic, come knocking on your door, that's really just about the first thing they'll probably already identified you for some reason. The truth of it is they probably know a lot more about you and your business than you do yourself, because they tend to keep files on all these things. So when they see some useful bit of information or a document comes across their desk, they tend to file it under your name. So they've got a fair bit of information should they ever want to come and have a chat to you. But what is really important is that you can show growth in customers and turnover. So what you want to be able to show is that in the first year you had 100 customers and $1 million in turnover. Again, I'll do maths I can do. The second year you had 2 million in turnover, 200 customers. You know where I'm going. Third year is 3 million in turnover and 300 customers. Because if you think about it, it's really, I suppose, again, stating the obvious, it's starting to show that you are fixing a problem, and your fix is what people are prepared to, and people are prepared to pay for it, and that you're growing, and the clients are sticking with you. The number of clients you've got starting to grow and grow. So, and what the attraction, if you think about it, is for these sort of big players is that you might have a couple of salespeople, which might include yourself, out selling your product. They're doing their best, but in time, there's time restrictions. You might be based in Victoria, New South Wales. That's expensive or time consuming to travel. Penetration of the rest of Australia might be poor, except for your local, your own backyard. But the big players, so you've got 2 people, salespeople just doing their best. These are big organisations, got 50 salespeople and systems. So they think to themselves, well, if these people are sort of fixing a problem, it's growing. They think, well, if they've got 2 salespeople, what can you do with 50? And what can you do if you're really organised, analytical about the sales process? And equally, if these bigger organisations often got lots of products, so they get a database, a client base from you. When they buy your business, then they'll probably try and sell them everything they've got on there, they've got available. So that's why these quite big prices come through. So if you're a real estate agent and you're used to sort of like multipliers of recurring income to value of rent roll, all that stuff just doesn't play here. There are numbers they use to get to the ultimate price for your business, but they're not those, and they're much bigger. The multipliers are much bigger. So the next thing that hopefully you've got to this stage, and there's a bit of a mixing a few elements together now. You've had the knock on the door, probably an email or a phone call saying can you have a chat, and you say, thank God for that, I'm just about to go broke, or I have to take the kids out of school. You finally, the payday is maybe going to arrive. So one of the things that's always going to happen is it's a pretty heavy duty process, is what you said, DD or due diligence, that the purchaser, potential purchaser, is going to want to do due diligence on your business. And I just want to run through, things should be along the way, but some of the main elements of due diligence that a potential buyer is going to want to have a look at. Definitely employment agreements. Again, these don't have to be particularly complicated, but a purchaser will be interested in making sure that whatever the IP, intellectual property, that's developed in that person's employment is owned by their employer, not them. And similarly, if you're using software developers, then anything that's developed, you own, they don't own. So that has to be really clear. Another one could be for your major employees, is there any restraints of trade? on them should they leave your business, because potential purchaser might be worried that the main people leave and then they'll start competing against you. So they'll be looking to see, is that possible, what restraints you've got. It's not complicated stuff, not particularly complicated anyway. It's something you do along the way. It's not much use scrambling around after someone's knocked on your door trying to get these things done, because it's been really difficult. The next one is going to sound a bit silly in a way, but like it's critically important, is that that your idea, your process is legally compliant, because a lot of these PropTech businesses, they're sort of beyond cutting edge. And that's the whole thing, isn't it, really? That's why they're useful, and that's why people want them. But real estate in Australia is a heavily regulated business, and you want to make sure that the idea that you've had is actually legally compliant, because the buyers going to eventually take it to their lawyers themselves. So look, this is what these people do. Is this legally compliant? I suppose you want a fairly simple example, which has ended up fine, but was not that clear at the start, was online auctions. That was a very complicated space for a while that had issues that now, all those issues seem to have sort of gone away, and that's all okay. But there's lots of them. There's lots of businesses that have unusual ideas or different ways of doing things. Again, that's why you're in it. And you want to make sure it's legally compliant, because if it's not, or it's a bit grey, then you might find a purchaser loses interest. To be fair, this can be an expensive space, because there is, and I'll come back to some of the federal laws, which means Australia-wide, but there is state and territory-based laws for real estate agents. There was years ago a project to sort of bring it all together under one set of laws, but it sort of cost a fortune and went nowhere. It's been officially abandoned now. So we'll often say to a client, look, this is going to be expensive because it's got 8 answers. What do you mean it's got 8 answers? We've got 6 states and 2 territories. Now you would think that some of the laws would be similar, but they're not. So the ACT, you think that might adopt New South Wales laws surrounding that. You think the Northern Territory might have South Australian laws, which in some places it does, but it doesn't in this space. So we'd often tell clients just with the legalities to try and figure out, maybe with the main states, whether it's legal. And I suppose realistically, population-wise, the main states are Victoria and New South Wales is larger again. And if you're going well and it all looks good, then you can move to the other states. If it is a bit uncertain, I actually have seen people go the other way and go to the smaller state in Australia, which is Tasmania, which has the least regulation of estate agents, and see whether it can be done there, and then have the product tested in Tasmania, because it's just easier to deal with, but only don't know what the population is in Tasmania, but it's not much. I have seen people go that way occasionally, but not commonly. It's more common that with the idea of the business they've got, they'll have a look at New South Wales, Victoria, see that, make sure it's compliant there. The next one is, again, stating the obvious, is you'd have agreements with clients. Any purchaser is going to want to see those again to make sure they make sense. Might want to look at how they're terminated or not terminated. That you've covered off things like privacy data. That is a bit of a move. I'll come back to that as well. That is a bit of a moving target at the moment, privacy and data, with all the breaches we seem to be having in Australia. So the legal agreements for privacy and data are different to actually the attack. But people are worried about it, purchasers are worried about it. Privacy seems to sort of go up and down with the tides. It seems to be some huge issue for a year or two, then it seems to go away. I think it's sort of slightly on the way up, the privacy laws, data is definitely of interest. Like, you've got all this data on clients and information. What can you do with it? How people can send it to you using it. So to go back, that you've got a major player who wants to buy your business. You want to have clauses that say that you own all the data and then you can use it. So when if a buyer uses it, they can use all the names and addresses to sell. A person, so if you're selling them, if you're selling clients jumpers, you want to be able to sell them hats as well and shoes, and so that the agreements allow that. Another one is becoming increasingly important, maybe just for Australia, is that if you've got an overseas buyer, and maybe really still calling a local buyer, they're really terrified of Australia from the perspective of all the cyber security breaches we have here. So they want to make sure, I'm not talking about legal things, I'm talking about the practical tech issues, that it's pretty hard to hack into your system. Like if you were, you have trouble keeping up with what's the latest one, but like Latitude, that wasn't a good look, and I think it happened on a Friday, and I went to the footy on the Friday night, and they've got the signage all around the ground, so it wasn't really a great look. But so there is apparently, not unsurprisingly, software that can test your business to see how easily it is hacked into, and a purchaser is going to do that. They're going to run, with your consent, a test over the whole of your business to make sure that it can't be hacked into too easily. So that's something that should be making sure along the way through that whatever systems you've got, and whoever's supplying them, means that it's very difficult to get through. Look, it's one of those things, I think, maybe not so much now, but definitely in the past, so I'll worry about that later on. I'll just keep focused. I need customers, I need customer, I need revenue, I need this. But I understand that is what's always going to be the priority, isn't it? But you really need to keep an eye on this cyber security risks on the way through to make sure you don't fall over. Another one that comes up, and I said I'd swing back to this shareholders agreements. If you're the founder or the establisher or the main person in the business, you probably want to be able to control the sale process. I mean, you can decide, if you had a great offer, that you're selling, because a buyer will often want to know what's the decision-making process, how many people do I need to agree to this sale to take place. So if it's a decision you can make, well, on your own, well, that's fine. Might be 75% vote in favour of a sale. You've probably heard these things, drag along, tag along. I'm not going to go into that now because I don't want to get myself confused. But who can make that decision? So if it's a 75% decision, who are 75? What's the 75% shareholders? Is that 2, 5? Because the buyer doesn't want to get too caught up in, like a boardroom fight about whether we're selling or not selling. Okay, so I think you really need to seriously think about the things that I've sort of mentioned, and also in particular the due diligence process. Because what seems to happen in my experience is you don't get a second chance. It doesn't seem to me what happens here is that the buyer comes, does due diligence and says, we don't like your customer agreements, can you go and fix all those up for us? Then we'll come back and we'll buy you, or do it during the process. I think it's more common they just walk away. Let's go and buy something else. So once you've got the potential buyer offering you the life-changing amount of money, if you don't pull that off, you may find that the people, that the potential purchasers don't come back. There's a whole other range. If you've got an offer, you need to understand what earn-outs, like, do you get all the money now, get it later on? But lawyers and accountants could help you with the complexities and the protections you need around that. If you get a great offer, there's probably going to be restraints for you, but again, lawyers and accountants can work your way through that. So hopefully that's been useful. Attached to information in this podcast is some details on me and also on Abraham Isaac, who works with me and does a lot of work in this space. You're more than welcome to give us a call, and we're happy to provide sort of general information if you like. We don't really charge for that sort of thing. We'll probably run a few more podcasts along this style on other topics, and I suppose if anyone thinks they've got a great topic for us, come back to us, because it's all right for us to talk about what we're interested. Like it's all right for me to want to talk about the Melbourne Football Club, but that's not going to be of interest to everyone. So if you've got any other topics that you think might suit any podcast like this, just let us know. Thanks for your time.